Hey guys, this is Belinda. We're back, and now we're going to begin to hinge our pages on this journal that we're making together. In the last video, we cut all our papers in half and we stacked them like we wanted them. I'm sure I've forgotten a page or turned a page wrong, but we can correct that as we go through because I'm going to be looking at my reference book so that we get it the right way. Any of those pages that were left over, like we didn't put this one in the stack, don't throw these away. Your extra piece of this, coffee stains or whatever, we're going to be using those to make embellishments when we work through decorating. What we're going to need right now is our book block papers that are stacked together that you just cut, some kind of glue to glue on your hinges, and I like to use Fabri-Tac. It dries quickly, it's a very strong bond, and it won't wrinkle the papers as it dries. Now, you can use any glue that you want. Just remember, you'll have to allow for some extra drying time if you use a different glue. And I just picked this up at Walmart. They have this big bottle. It's about $12 or $13, but they make a smaller one too that's $7 or $8. If you can invest in that, I recommend that you get some Fabri-Tac. And you're going to need your hinges, okay? So I'm going to get everything set up, and I keep scissors, large and small, handy, within reach, and a pencil just in case I ever have to make marks. That's just, you may not need those. That's just something for me. I'm going to set my glue over here and my pages to the side so we can start working, okay? We're going to start with our girl. I want you to turn her face down. You're going to get, this next piece is the graph line paper that you should have in your stack. I want you to take it and fold up a little bit. It doesn't take much. That's probably half, 3/4 of an inch. What we're doing with this first paper is we're going to hinge directly onto the back of the first page. And I fold it over like this and crease just to kind of see where things are going to lie. And I think I want this, I want a little green peeping out on that side, and I fold it back on itself. All right. Now, you pick this whole thing up. This is your hinge. You're going to put some glue. It won't take much, just a wiggle of glue, because like I said, Fabri-Tac is strong and it dries quickly. I'm going to turn my page this way so I can work with it, and leaving just a little bit of the green showing so that your pages will move without bumping into one another. I'm going to do that, okay? And then we need a hinge. Now, here's where your first tip comes in, because the next page we're going to be hinging to this is a coffee-stained page. And as you can see, it's longer than the graph paper. Your first tip is, and this is where you're going to need your scissors. You will need your scissors for sure. Maybe or maybe not the pencil. But your hinge should always be the length of the shortest page, whether it's the page that's already down or the one you're putting on next. The hinge should never be longer than the shortest page in the two that you're working with as you go. So, glue hinge. And you want it to open this way. So, again, I'm turning it. And right on the edge of that graph paper, you can barely see a slither of the green paper sticking out there behind it. I'm going to take my fingers and you can work it up to that edge. All right. Another tip I'm going to give you right now as we begin to stack, you are going to always try to keep your stack as neat as possible. And after you get past this first hinge, I promise it will become second nature, okay? Instead of gluing the big paper, since the hinge is shorter, we're going to glue the hinge. And we're going to center this paper, turn it this way so I can work with it. And if my head gets in the way, I'm sorry. I'm standing up to do this so I can see to work. And I'm centering this coffee stained paper right there on the hinge, okay? So, let me keep rubbing your glue, And even though there's a little gap or it's a little longer, it's okay. Our cover is going to take care of that. So this is what we have already. And here's the third tip. You're going to go back and work your hinges as they're drying. I need a little more glue there. For those of you that have watched me make things before, you know I get sloppy with glue, so I try to be cautious. So sometimes I have to go back. All right? Like that. I got some glue on the page, but it's Fabri-Tac. It dries clear. Okay, rub, rub. All right, now that I've re-glued that, I'm going to work my hinge again. Work it. So see how easy it opens now? Just that little bit of working, and you can wait until the end to do all of that. It doesn't matter, but I just kind of work as I go. The next page is this page, the graph page. I look to make sure I've got my book turned correctly, and I do. I'm going to grab a hinge. These pages are both kind of long, so it won't really matter. I'm applying glue down the length of this is why my glue gets messy. I don't like to use my fingers because then my fingers are awful trying to work with other pages. And this hinge looks like it's a little off center, but we'll use it because I want to show you it doesn't really matter. I'm using my fingers and I'm feeling, and I'm making sure it's in line. Okay, then now I can kind of refold that end that's a little wonky. Look, see, my hinge is straightened out. Okay, now I'll look at it. It's a little shorter here, which means it's sticking up a little longer there. Watch what an easy fix this is because everything is in line. My longer pages will be in line. See, I just nipped it off. Perfect. That's one of those things you can wait until the end to do. Okay. Glue. Like I said, I like my holes at the bottom. So, stack and push. Now we've added another page. This goes really quickly, no sewing. That's why I like it. And once we start moving, we'll be moving. I'm going to grab a hinge, crease it, glue it. Now, if you want to turn this video off and go through your stack, which I don't recommend you do because I think I've turned a couple of pages wrong and left out a piece of graph paper. So we'll be fixing that as we go with our stack. But now I'm going to put on coffee stain paper, and I'm keeping that torn edge. This will be the outside of the book. That's where I'm keeping it. So if that matters to you, pay attention to that as you go. If it doesn't matter to you, you can just slap these together. And it really doesn't take much glue. I'm overzealous when I first start. I calm down as I get going. And most of you will probably be that way too. But if you will notice, I'm keeping this edge even, my hinge edge. See? When I push it down. Now you can see it all lines up, it butts up, and that's important. I've got a few pages done, so I'm going to stop and work my hinges as they're drying. Okay. Now this is a shorter page. The next page coming up is going to be this one. All right, it's going to be turned face down because I want to be looking at it as I open my book right there, and my torn edges on the outside. So I'm going to grab a hinge. This is one of those that I tore with a ruler, and in the last demonstration I'm going to show you it doesn't matter. So what I want to do is I want to take my hinge and line it up to my shortest page, and my hands are going to get nasty because my edges are inked already. So, and I just snip that off to be the length of my shortest page. See it? So probably what I'm going to do is glue to this one first, since it's shorter now that I'm moving. So I'll get that hinge. Yep, that's the correct side. turn it over and line it up with the edge of the short one. Okay, so that it opens this way, because now I'm going to join it to my page. And, you know, lots of people do it different ways. They'll tell you they line it up like this, but we're going to be making a stack that's about 1 inch high. So the tip of keeping it butted up here, that's going to help you to reach 1 inch without getting wonky pages that aren't stacked correctly. So there, hold it down with my fingers, put it up to the edge, and I center it. I like them centered. So right there, right along the edge. And there we go. Okay, another hinge. And this time we're going to a coffee stained paper, but again, this is the shortest page. The coffee stained paper, you know, is a little taller. So we're going to cut our hinge to fit. We're going to trim it to fit our shortest. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, I'm like, okay, I need that much off. You know, it can be a little shorter than your longest page. I'm going to glue to it first because it's the shortest page. All these, I know I'm being repetitive, but all these things will help you keep this in alignment, and you will do it right the first time and not have to reprint or use more papers because you messed up, okay? I'm going to just rub that. And I'm feeling to make sure it's butted up to the edge, and it is. Now, glue on the hinge because it's shorter than the coffee stained paper. That keeps you from having all that excess glue sticking out on the ends of your pages. Line it up. Just like that, okay? Now, hinge. We're gonna go to this paper. So it doesn't really matter what we glue down first. So I'm going to glue the back side of this hinge. Right down. I can slide it a little bit. And if I leave it a little too long, I can trim it when I finish. That's not a catastrophe because you can trim those ends when you finish. But that feels good even there. And take this paper. Like I said, I like my holes to the bottom. You can turn yours around. Now, I'm going to continue working like this because I think you've got the gist of it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some different things that you can do. If you have lots of stamps and tools and craft supplies, like, oh, let me stop. See how I was doing that? The glue is on the wrong side. Just turn your hinge around. Okay. All right, let me go back. If you have lots of stamps, things like gesso, things like that you decorate pages with, I would do all of that on each page before I hinged it. Okay? Like, in other words, I would maybe smear a little gesso on these pages, let that dry, do a little script stamping with Stays On. This is Stays On ink. And if you have it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't and you want to get it, this is a script stamp that I bought ages ago at Hobby Lobby. This is another handwriting stamp I got off of Hobby Lobby. But you could just ink and stamp down and decorate your pages before you glue them together. That makes them easy to work with. And that would be the time to do it. All right, now we are on the dot grid paper. And I'm going to hinge directly to this paper again. So I'm going to lay it up there. And it doesn't matter if you want it all at the bottom. These I'll flip around some, so it doesn't really matter. But I want to make sure I have that hinge length right. So I'm going to say it's easier to fold if you do it on the table. Like this for my hinge. Okay. And that will hinge here. So I know it will be like that. right up to the edge on this one. And then I'm going to fold back until I get the width I want and crease it. I like that. Okay? So now it's just a matter of, this is your hinge. Okay? Trying to make sure I stay on camera. And again, I just turn my paper so that my spine, which is what we're building with the hinges and the pages, this will be your spine. Ta-da. All right, there's another hinged page. We're to the little girl. Now, these are 2 short pages. This one is shorter, so your hinge is going to match the shortest again. So I'm just going to hold it up here, get an idea of where it needs to be, snip it off, and glue it down on the back side of this. Now, let's talk about the hinges. What are some things that you can do differently with the hinges? Well, for one, you could use thin, like printer copy paper, printed with a design on it. If you'll remember, if you go back and look in the video where we did the paper selection, I had you print like the designs on some thin copy paper. You can print a lot of those and use colored hinges, you know, with the paper. Or again, before you rip and tear, or if you have the scoreboard. Now see this one, I want the little girl like this, so it doesn't matter. My torn edge will be on the inside. I don't care. I'm still moving. And I'm going to center it. Okay? Just like that. You can script stamp your copy paper before you rip it, or score it and cut it to make your hinges, and it will have script stamping on it. I got a little offline there, and that's important, so I'm going to have to stop and line that up. It's got to be in line, or your book will be wonky. You want a straight edge right there, a straight edge. All right, let's make sure that's good. It is. All right, next is, just bear with me. I know this video may be a little bit longer, but I want you to watch it so that you don't mess up going through and being like, I should have watched that. All right, I'm making this hinge, since this paper is the shorter, I'm making it good for that. Believe it or not, we're over halfway there, so hold on. We're getting there. Just be patient with this one, because if this is not right, the book will not be right. It has to be lined up, you know. So if you need me to remind you, and see, I kind of centered that. It's a little shorter than the shortest page, so I center it on it. Glue on the hinge. I'm watching my video length, and I know I'm getting long. That's good. We're just going to go with it. It is what it is, because I'm talking and explaining as I go. And once you watch this video through and make sure that I haven't messed up on putting a page in order or something, you can fly with it and do it yourself, because you'll know exactly what to do. And you can do this on any hinge journal that you do. Making sure it's centered, and I'm using my fingers, feeling my spine. It's lined up great, okay? And I'm going to glue this one. I'm just going to kind of get quiet and let you watch me so I can finish this video without boring you to death and without taking too long. All right, next up, see, on this one, I told you wrong. I want this to be in. The green should be up. We had it stacked the other way. I knew I had probably made a couple of bobos going through on how I wanted pages turned. I'm just going to measure and snip my hinge there. And glue to it first, since it's the shortest. So green side up, not the printed side up, the other print side. If you're using your own paper, that won't matter. But if you're using my pack from Etsy, it will. I mean, I'll show you what it does here in just a second. Let me get there. Right on the edge. And then center it and line it up with the edge. With a hinge-bound book, you don't want to get too wide. You can get too wide. You can get by wide, I mean thick, the hinge. If you start getting over an inch, inch and a half, and see, we're getting there, and they're not all perfect. They don't have to be. Kind of take a peek as you get through. So I'm glad I looked at that. I'll start playing because your cover's going to, it hides a multitude of sins. All right? So, and then what I wanted was, if I had hinged this the other way, the hinge would have covered up this paper because it would have been in the center. I wanted this design to show on the outside. That's why I turned it that way. All right. Coffee stain paper. Let me grab a hinge. And you'll notice as I'm putting these together, my hinges are not always perfect. They don't, like one side can sometimes be a little wider than the other, but that's not quite such a big deal. You don't want them too far off center, but you've got to leave yourself enough room to put glue, okay? Oh, and I didn't trim that, but that's okay. I'm just going to show you what we can do. See, it happens. I needed to make a bubble to show you. Open that up and snip it even with your shortest page, and it's corrected. Did you see that? Okay, I hope. Now, coffee stain paper. And I want my torn edge out. I'm going to move this one up a hair because I seem to be working down on my spine, and see, now's the time to correct it, to go back up just a touch higher with the next page. Nobody's perfect. Not even people that have been making journals for years, I promise. I want one that's a little more even. That's more even. I know that I made all of my hinges out of coffee stain paper, so I know they're exactly the right length this way. And that's important. I'm going to slide that hinge down just a hair. There we go. And I'm still right on that edge. Let me look where I'm at. That's 1 coffee stain page, 2 coffee stain pages, 3 before I come to something else. So that's 1. Two. Sorry. I got glue spider webs dangling. Okay. Butt it right up to the edge. Even if you get a little glue on your page, because you can wipe it off, that hinge has got to be butted. All right. And see, that's a little off right there. I'm going to line that up a little better. This is one of those hinges that I had to go back and remake the center because I had gotten kind of off. One side of the hinge was wider than the other. This is how you play with it when you're working with your book to make it work. Okay. Now, graph paper. And that is not what I have in the stack for us. So I know that see, I'm glad you watched. All right, we're going to use, I have that piece of graph paper that an edge is kind of torn off of. That's okay. This is a vintage style junk journal. You can have a multitude of sins and it will still look fabulous. Okay, right there. Now, we're getting there. We're almost to the end. Hinge. Now, next is this paper. It's the shorter paper, so again, we got to trim. And I'm going to glue to it first because it's the shorter paper. My hinge is not centered great, so I'm going to play with that a second to get it a little closer. There we go. It's still a little off, but it's not a life or death thing. The main thing is that this edge of this hinge will be to the edge of these pages. Just like that. Okay. Now, I hope this is helping. Now listen, if you have any questions or if I have confused you in any way or if there's something that you're not clear on, comment below and I will be more than happy to help you. I will answer, try to give you clarity, point you in the right direction, okay? I'm just lining that up a little better there now. Okay. Next is a piece of coffee stained paper. And I hope that you found your hinge making quick and easy. Once you make a couple of them, look, I did it again. I'm going to have to trim this hinge. So I'm moving it all the way to the end right here. I forgot. See, shorter paper. I'm talking. Let me go ahead and pick it up before I attach another paper to it and snip that off a little so that it comes right to the end of the shortest page. Butt it to the edge. Good. But this is a great method for making a book when, you know, you don't have like the, an awl and something which you can use a phone book when you're poking holes in signatures, but it's a little tricky. And sometimes beginners, that's binding the book is the part that will get them. And this takes care of that. This is an easy binding, and that's why I think it makes a perfect beginner's book. All right, now we have, let me put something over here, another one of these pages. So I'm going to make my hinge. This is the dot grid paper. Just want a little hinge on there. And then I'm going to put it up here to see how wide I want my fold back. Sorry. Crinkly, crinkly. And that looks good to me. All right, so on the hinge on this one. Right to the edge. Okay. Okay. Now we have that. And now we're going to do a coffee stain paper. We only have like 4 or 5 papers left, so hang in there, guys. Make sure I didn't make any more mistakes on the stacking of the paper, okay? I think there's one more I left out. I think it's a piece of graph paper. All right. See, talking. Did it again. That's okay. Before I lay it down all the way, I'm going to snip it off. It's got to be with the shortest, the same length as your shortest paper you're hinging. If nothing else, you'll see that everybody makes mistakes. It's hard for me to work and talk. Okay, now, ta-da. We have a little bit of a glue mess, but when Fabri-Tac dries, it just kind of rolls off if you don't want it there. Okay, and now we're going to put a piece of coffee stain paper, and we already have our hinge trimmed. And remember, with every page that you put, you're continuing to check that you're butted up this way, okay? There's that. Let that dry a little bit. Next is another coffee stain. I see like 3 or 4 pages left, so hold on. make sure you smooth your hinges out, butt up to the edge. Okay. Graph paper. See the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm centering, checking, everything looks great. All right. And then we have this paper. Let's see which side. Yeah, and I want the lady to be up because she's going to be on this back side then. Okay. Now, before I boo-boo, let's go ahead and cut this hinge. If you wanted to, when you first start, when you're lining them up, you could line up your hinges too. Go ahead and trim so many to your shortest pages so that you can just grab those pre-cut hinges, you know, and you won't have to worry about forgetting to trim and going back to trim and all that. It's just easier if you will see it and trim it before you put the next longer piece on, because it's harder to get in there. You run the risk of cutting the taller page when the two are joined together. So if you catch it before you put it together, it's no big deal. I'm going to the center. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Now, we should be getting close to the end. We've got coffee. Yeah, 3 pages. Let's stop right there. Going to a short page, so I'm snipping. This hinge is a little cattywampus. It won't matter. You'll see. Okay. I'm feeling. That feels good. Everything's butted up still. Coffee stain paper. Glue to the hinge because it's been trimmed. You're going to be a pro at this. After this one book, you'll be like, why in the world haven't I been making journals like that? Cute, cute. All right, there's that. Graph paper. So regular hinge, no trimming. Find one that is folded correctly, easier to work with. Butt it up to the edge. But you can see how if you had some pretty script stamping on the paper, how much grunginess and shabby chicness just the hinge could add to these pages. You don't notice them as much when you leave them plain. When you stamp them, it makes them pop. So it just depends on which look you want for your hinges, whether you're going to leave them plain or decorate the hinges and do all of that before you cut them into hinges. And same thing with page decoration. Also, if you were going to sew laces, I would do it before I hinge them, because that way it will give you, oops, see, checking for glue spots. That way you'll know automatically which side's going to go in because your lace is sewn on the outside. Now, this page is next. And there's one thing I forgot to add to it, but we're going to do that now. And I wanted this up so the green goes on back. Let me double check. Yeah, it's going to go down like that. Let me cut this last hinge because I did add a piece of graph paper in there. And I forgot that. I think because it's kind of like an embellishment, but I want to go ahead and put it now because we're hinging. It's a flip out, but it's just put on a different side. All right, let me push up where we can see. Make sure, again, I'm doing this right, and I am. Because this time the torn edge is on the inside. You know what? I still did that upside down. I'm going to have to rub that off. I want it like this. Let me put my stuff back down where I can look at it so I know what I'm doing. See, I messed up. But do a quick pull. Don't let it set up. Okay. Then glue on top of this. And it doesn't matter. You can put either side of the page up. I'm just trying to be sure to reproduce the book that I showed you, because I don't want anybody to say, well, she turned it different. She did this, she did that. It really doesn't matter. Center this. Okay. And now for the last part that I left off is going to be another piece of this graph paper. Okay. And what I did was I hinged to this on the inside of this. So I'm going to make my fold. It doesn't have to be that big, I don't think. Probably like this. Okay. And I'm going to hinge it down just like I did the others. Like that. Let me make sure that's how I did it. Yeah. Same way. I'm going to measure it this way from the opposite side. There we go. Now I'm turning right. Hinge down and folding back to the middle. That came off. That's okay. I didn't have enough glue. There. Right here at the end, I'm going to fall apart, of course. All right, that's how that's going to go. But let me go ahead and put a little more glue on this book block. Hinge, because I didn't glue it. My glue had dried because I pulled it up. All right, and it's going to be inside like that. Make sure everything is lined up still. Even when you boo-boo, stay calm. Okay, that's now. Glue this. This is it, folks. This is the end of the book block. And I'm putting it right inside there so that it can flip out this way. All right? And that's it. I want this over a little bit more. Okay. Now, there's your book block. You see it from the end. Everything's butted up. Butted up. Now, what I want you to do before we work on the cover is let this dry a little bit and then begin to work through your pages and loosen your hinges. That's what I call it. We've kind of been doing that as we've been going, but there's some that will dry a little tighter than others, and you want your book pages to move great, and you want to make sure that they're not glued together. So do that for me. Let it dry a second, and then work through your flips. Like these will sometimes be a little tight, where you went from graph paper to small paper, but that fixes it right there. That's it. So work through, and I'll see you in the next video. Sorry this one was so long. Like I said, I was talking through it, but we're going to put the cover on, and then first we're going to cover the spine. Then we'll do the covers and embellish, and she'll be done. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.